It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week, we're looking towards Disney Plus Day. D23
yes,
weekend,
of
right?
All around.
Yeah.
I think it's just before it, right? A couple days before D23.
Well, yeah, I think maybe on the cusp of D23. Lord of the Rings, they're taking over all the Earths. And we'll talk about how you might be seeing spin-offs of your favorite characters sooner than later.
What if you don't have a favorite character and you just
You're gonna see them
with,
anyway, Mike. To hell with you
Okay.
and not having a favorite. HBO Max is getting real lean, not in a good way, and more.
Yeah, we are coming at you with Monday Night Vibes.
Yes.
Something that I don't think we've done quite before. Whenever we've missed a Sunday, we've managed to slide in maybe on a Monday afternoon, late morning, but busy weekend. Had some friends/family. Well, I guess they're all family now because they just got married in Denver over the weekend. Wild, never been to an outdoor wedding where it rained before. It only rained exactly during the ceremony, which was hilarious. So I was drenched in my suit, but if you've never been drenched in a suit before, it's not as crazy as you think it would be. The weather came and I air dried pretty quickly, and by the end of the night, it was like I was never rained on before.
That is hilarious. One of my wife's coworkers got married this weekend, and it rained. So they did the ceremony, and they were like, "All right, you're married, run!" And it started pouring rain, and everyone had to pick up their chairs in the rain and run inside. Literally, again, nowhere near Denver, Mike, myself. So I think that's funny that we were both in rainy weddings this weekend, or at least at rainy weddings.
They were getting really close to bad luck because they had decorations at their venue, and they had this mirror that was painted with their names in front of it as you walked in. These huge wind gusts came in, knocked that thing over, and then we started running over there to save the decorations, and I was like, oh man, if that mirror just broke, that is going to be some super duper extra bad luck. But luckily it survived intact. So, yeah, crazy weekend, very busy, didn't get back till late. Just watched She-Hulk just a couple of hours ago, so struggling to avoid spoilers and Easter eggs and people's little favorite bits through social media. But now I'm here, ready to record, catch up with everything, and I'm here with you, Chris, to do that.
We are here. We saw an opportunity to record on Monday evening, and we took it. It's right after kind of work for you, and it's right before bed for me. So it's we're it's weird, we're both at weird energies, right? That where we're not normally. So let's roll with it. So I'm gonna jump in. We're gonna keep this like you said, efficient, Mike, if you will. This weekend I was able to go see Dragon Ball Superhero. Literally 30 minutes before I had to leave for this wedding, I got out of this movie. So I was cutting it close, man. I was on the wire to go watch this movie in theaters. If you're not up to date with Dragon Ball Super, not watched the last outing, which was Dragon Ball Broly, you might be confused as hell with this. I believe my wife was. Now she's like, I need to go back and figure out what they're the key episodes. I'm like, I cannot tell you what key episodes in Dragon Ball are. Do you like it when they charge up? Because we got a lot of episodes where they charge up. But Dragon Ball Superhero is very interesting because two things. Number one, this is one of those movies where the main cast is actually not Goku and Vegeta, right? They lean into Piccolo and Gohan, who have a working relationship from Dragon Ball Z, right? You know this.
I've never heard it described as a working relationship. That's really
exactly. Online, they call him Gohan's real dad as Piccolo. But the villains are actually throwbacks to the Dragon Ball era of this series. So the Red Ribbon Army, you may have heard of them throughout some of that stuff. They're definitely the antagonist here. But I would say the biggest thing, for anyone who may not, they actually did this in a 3D animation, cel shaded animation. So everything has depth to it. for the first time in like a Dragon Ball movie, because Broly was kind of still even like that 2-dimensional like drawing. So it was very interesting to watch this whole series kind of get a makeover 30 years later into like a modern animation style, which is crazy to see. But it wasn't bad. It took me like a minute to kind of adjust, but once I got into the rhythm of it, it was pretty good. One thing is great is they still have the original voice actors doing this from like the early 2000s. Whenever we grew up watching this, Mike, so it's great to just kind of fall back and like, I know these voices, I know these characters. So that was really fun. But yeah, if you're into Dragon Ball Super, that's in theaters now in English. It'll probably be on, what's that, Crunchyroll, I believe, is where Dragon Ball lives right now, pretty sooner than later. For that, but I if you're into it, you probably already know. I don't need to tell you to go see it. If you're not into it, you don't need to watch this. You're going to be very confused about what's going on. The best part about this was last week after we got the show, the biggest crossover in Fortnite ever is the Dragon Ball crossover. So you get to play as Goku running around with a machine gun, killing off other people.
The memes from that update is crazy.
Yeah.
There's just a perfect encapsulation screenshot of Indiana Jones wearing an Among Us backpack, shooting a Kamehameha to win the match, and it was like it's like I was looking at a weird like archaeological find, no pun intended, with it being Indiana Jones. It's like, what is an alien gonna think if they're hop on our Twitter feeds, or they're gonna be so confused.
Yeah. Well, what's great about it is this used to be fan fiction, fan art stuff. Now you just jump in a game and you can recreate it at any given moment. It's really fun to watch it. So all that fun stuff. There's if you also do the free quests, you can unlock Shinron as your glider, the dragon from the Dragon Balls. But I was able to go see that. I was very, very excited to go see that. I know you've not been out in theaters because you were out in Denver, but you got to watch some other stuff here. Looks like you finally got to catch up on one of Sony's big releases for the year.
Yes, luckily when you are on a plane, you are on the hunt for the perfect plane movie, which is usually something you're only going to watch if you're tied down in an airplane, and nothing that you really want to experience in a cinematic way on a bigger screen. So I feel like the perfect encapsulation of that is Uncharted, starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, which is on Netflix. One of the, I guess, advantageous deals where Sony is sending a lot of its big movies to Netflix. So I pre-saved that, downloaded it to my phone, hopped on my Southwest flight, and watched Uncharted, and was treated to a very unremarkable and incredibly average action film, which is not necessarily bad on the whole. But it was entertaining for 2 hours, when you're crammed in between two people.
I know you're a big
I don't
fan
have
of
much else.
Well, I was gonna say, I know you're a big fan of the video game franchise, so that's why I was.
Yeah, there was a couple moments where I felt like I was slightly reliving moments of the games, which I've played all of them by now. So it was kind of fun whenever I was able to dip back into that feeling. But it came and it went very quickly. They rushed the origin story, if you will, which is kind of unfortunate, because really the origin of Nathan Drake and Sully in the video games, we never really get to visually see it, So this was the opportunity for where we could actually show them like actually meeting up and getting together. But now that I think about it, maybe there was a brief moment in the video game. Oh, I remember it now. And I think that was actually more entertaining because you got to play it. So Tom Holland is very charming, though. This is really the first time I've seen him in something like kind of comedic action-y outside of Spider-Man. Yeah. So will they get a sequel? They made an after-credit scene that looked like it was plucked right out of the next movie. So it seemed like they were hopeful back when they were making the movie. So we'll see if it ever gets a sequel. I think I would watch it, but I would not pay to go see it. So Netflix seems to be the perfect avenue for maybe the next Uncharted film.
Comparing it to Morbius, the other Sony movie released this year, which would you rank higher?
Uncharted, undoubtedly. Okay. Like Uncharted to me is like a C minus. Like Morbius failed the assignment through and through. But Uncharted, after I watched it, I was like, I need to go watch that Alicia Vikander Tomb Raider movie. Yeah. Because it feels exactly like the trailer for that movie. Like, I feel like these are like one and the same. Might as well combine the universes and just do a crossover, get that synergy going. But I think I actually could recommend Uncharted The only unfortunate thing is, the fun thing about the Uncharted games is they kind of took the ploy from Indiana Jones, where as those movies progress, the Indiana Jones movies, they start to like pepper in like, you know, a little bit of like mythos, a little bit of magic, a little bit of the unexplainable, right? And the video games do that really, really well. There is none of that in this movie. This movie is basically all but, you know, it's weird to say nonfiction because, you know, these characters can't make these jumps and do these fantastical things, but there's no like bit of like wonder or magic or that special in this.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be able to add a little bit of that when they get into a sequel, if that ever happens.
Yeah.
But Uncharted, streaming, quote unquote, for free on Netflix. It's a brisk 2 hours, but a little slow in the front. But if I could recommend something pretty positive, head on over to Peacock and watch the new series called The Resort, which stars two actors that I don't remember their names, but I can tell you iconic roles that you would know them from. Chidi from The Good Place, that actor's in this show, and the mother from How I Met Your Mother is also in this show. I will never be able to remember these actors' names. I just know them by their characters, but they play a married couple that go off on a anniversary vacation and get wrapped up in like a murder mystery cold case. That's kind of cool. But unlike the Uncharted movie, like it's starting to dabble in like a little bit of like mystery and magic, but they're kind of toying with the audience where you don't know, oh, are they actually doing that? Is that actually what this is? I never watched Lost, but I imagine that's kind of what Lost was like, right? You know, you kind of started the show, you think they were just a plane crash, but then kind of these unexplainable things started happening. That's kind of starting to happen in The Resort. So that's still airing right now on Peacock. I don't know if it's a limited series or if it's going to possibly get a season 2, but, you know, that stuff changes all the time. I think The White Lotus was a limited series, and all of a sudden it got renewed for a season 2. So if you got Peacock, go check out The Resort.
It's only limited by how many seasons they want to make of it, Mike. How popular are these things? So.
That's the way to look at it. But that is what I watched this week. And to segue into our first topic, I was able to finally watch the very first episode of The Sandman on Netflix.
You are ahead of me. I've not had time because we're going to talk about The Sandman, but I want to talk about home ownership, Mike, and how getting a hot water heater and an air conditioner can just not ruin your day. It just exhausts you, right? So within 24 hours, I had a hot water heater replaced and an AC unit replaced. So I did not get to sit down and watch any of this stuff because at any moment they could just turn your power off and you're like, I really don't want to get into something and I'll have to do that. But anyway, if you've not seen The Sandman, you know, they're all on Netflix. If you have, there's another extra episode they release a month later for the show, or a couple weeks, like 3 weeks after, called A Dream of a Thousand Cats. It's still based on the book, still same with actors, it's live action. It's apparently this was someone involved in the production. I don't think it was Damon Lindelof. I think it was somebody else. Was suggested holding back an episode and releasing it later. You know, this is one of those situations where honestly I hadn't even heard of this episode being made or teased or dropping until it literally dropped on Netflix the day of. And if I remember last time this happened for Netflix, was it, I believe, the Cloverfield Paradox, where they kind of surprise dropped something on us? So,
well, they've kind of done things like this before where a show will come out and then maybe they'll do like a holiday episode, right? You know, kind of in the vein of like the BBC or like British television shows.
Right.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I do find it interesting because whenever like a big kind of premium project drops on Netflix, I feel like I'm always sitting back and I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see what the reception of the show is like because Netflix acts pretty quick when they determine a show is not successful, and they'll put the vibes out there, and you'll know, oh, we're not going to be seeing any more Sandman. But I feel after a couple days after it was released, I started seeing Sandman stay in the top 10, top 5, top 3 shows on Netflix. I was like, okay, this is doing pretty good, especially for a show that is not one of these like reality shows or like teen drama based shows that Netflix usually does really, really well with. So I was like, oh man, Sandman is really performing on Netflix, and Netflix needs these big type of shows. So I started to see more people engage with it on social media, and you definitely can tell when Netflix has a lot of faith in a show is when they crank up their meme generators on their own social media accounts. So if you follow Netflix on Twitter or Instagram, you really start to feel what the company wants to push and to promote. And I see the Sandman a lot in there. So this is good for Netflix. This is good for Sandman. But I don't think we've heard season 2 yet, right?
Before we jump into this, let me go back to the episode. If you watch the episode, it does include the Audible cast as characters in this, by the way, because we talked about like James McAvoy, right? David Tennant, Michael Sheen, Sandra Oh, like all these people are in that episode. So it tells me like that's, you're talking about, you know, Netflix having faith in it. Like whoever is doing all the Sandman stuff is literally bringing everyone together, right? They're like, oh my gosh, we got all these great voice actors doing the Audible series. Let's bring them into here. But as Neil Gaiman has said, you know, Netflix has not renewed this yet, and the reason for that is apparently Sandman is a really expensive show. And for Netflix to greenlight / bankroll the next season, it has to perform incredibly well. But this show has been the top show in the world, I believe, until the Game of Thrones episode last night. That this was the number one streaming. And you know, there's not really been anything else, right? So that's been to the advantage of Sandman. However, Gaiman has also said if Netflix does not pick this up, he has full rights to shop it around to other homes if he so desires. So I think, you know, again, Netflix market. If Netflix is pushing it, I believe they have faith in it, right? They want to ride that wave while they can. But with Game of Thrones this week, Amazon, I believe, in 2 weeks for the Rings of Power, it's probably, you know, not on its way out, but those numbers are going to drop pretty quickly. So this is probably where we're probably about a month out before they say yes or no on season 2 and confirm it. So have you ever read the Sandman books before, Mike, before we...
It's funny. The very first episode encompasses exactly the amount of Sandman that I've read. So I've yet to watch an episode where I didn't know what was going to happen. But yeah, if you just kind of read that first, I don't even remember if it was the first issue or the first trade or whatever.
It's the first issue because the trade,
that first setup.
Yeah, the trade covers more down the road of episodes that I know you probably haven't read yet about the masks and Dream getting his stuff back. So as far as I can tell, the adaptation of the first issue and the first episode went over well, but if I get around episode 2, hopefully if I get some free time, it will be all new territory for me, so that'll be fun. Did you are you I guess the question without you showing your hand, yes or no, are you going to want to watch more? Are you going to try to watch more, or are you like, yeah, I'm okay?
I mean, so far it's intriguing. But it seems like I think this is just it just depends what headspace you're in when you're like watching and binging different TV shows. It's like, am I ready to like engage my time and schedule with like an hour-long drama? Maybe. We'll see how it goes. It's also like this is what happens kind of when things become bingeable on a Netflix format, right? It's just like I have like 8 to 10 hours in front of me to commit to Sandman, which I'm sure that they're great hours, but it's almost like if it just came out once a week, maybe I could keep up with it a little bit better. And I know you're telling me you can just watch one episode a week if you want, Mike. No, I can't. I don't have the self-control to do that, so it's just too daunting on my psyche. But so far, so good.
Okay. All right. I plan on watching it. Like I said, I just had a chance to sit down and do it, but I'm looking forward to possibly taking advantage of that when I have some more free time. And I'm not going out to spend money because I just spent a lot of money on my house. Moving along, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Some new image. Looks like a pre-viz render shows the villain Nightmare. What his scene would have looked like. Looks like there are 4 people, possibly other sorcerers on the thing, but he is riding a big, deathly, I guess, big black horse with his big horns on his helmet. But this was supposed to be the character Nightmare if he made his appearance in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
This is a little bit of a bummer, just because, like, I would say one of the very fair critiques of Multiverse of Madness is we didn't get a lot of multiverses, And it kind of looks like maybe this could have been one of them. I mean, there's a big blue screen behind it, so you could put your creative multiverse back behind there. But it seems like maybe this would have been a different universe.
I think this was maybe the pre-opening for Doctor Strange, like his cold opening, I guess, if you will. But the character Nightmare, I mean, it's a pretty strong character. I probably wouldn't waste him early on, maybe. But it looks to be snowy and maybe on a lake, right? A nice lake, it looks like to me. Mm-hmm. So I don't know anywhere in the movie where he was on an ice lake. Unless maybe he was this horse was maybe one of Wanda's minions, maybe, possibly. I don't know. Best part about we talked about this cut things and things that don't happen is they're not canon, and they can use them however they want going forward. So if you want to take a look at the picture from Instagram here, you can check that out in our show notes. We're going to move along to another movie that also came out this year for Marvel, Thor, Love and Thunder. September will now be on Disney Plus September 8th, Mike. We are just 2 weeks away, right? That's what I'm looking at here, which I believe is the Thursday before D23. So, is that a Thursday? I'm going to I have my calendar literally pulled up for this. September, Thursday.
We're in that zone.
Yeah, because they're doing She-Hulks on Thursdays now. So they will also be adding one of those assembled episodes, which is essentially the behind the scenes of Thor: Love and Thunder. So I kind of like to watch that one on this one a little bit to see, how they made sense, because a lot of this has got to be green screened, right? Literally. Most of Thor: Love and Thunder is somewhere on the stuff in New Asgard, a set, but everything else is very spacey, trippy. So I'd like to see some of the fun they were having on set, maybe some of the riffing, so that'll be out there. Speaking of more concept art, this is where this originally popped up before that Thor news came out today on Monday. We get to see some concept art of the Grandmaster, played by, can't think of the actor's name, Jeff Goldblum, in his cut role from Thor: Love and Thunder. And it looks like he has someone putting Korg back together, right? Because you see Korg's face in the bottom left, and this guy's welding on something, maybe. I don't know what he's making here, but
yeah, I find the most interesting part that they're kind of trying to bring in the visual identity of the Celestials onto this welding helmet with these dots, which of course this is just concept art, but maybe there is just kind of an overall vibe over at Marvel with the visual design crew that hey, we need to think more and more about these Celestials whenever we move forward, because we're trying to lean on them a little bit more, especially when you talk about the Eternals. So I like that idea about it.
I think it's fun. I also think, it's also a Jack Kirby thing who created the Eternal, or not the Eternals, the Celestials, right? So you see the back, the red and white, the lines and circles, that very feels much like an old Jack Kirby comic book. So they were very much leaning on that for Ragnarok and Love and Thunder. But I also say, I go back to Guardians 1 and 2 also kind of borrowed some of those Celestial designs. So anything in space has definitely got a feel in the MCU, so you can check out that bit in our notes below. So but yeah, I thought wouldn't it be funny, as I was saying, is that the Grandmaster shows up, and instead of going after Thor, he's giving Korg a robot body, his little rock helmet would have been on a kind of like Meek, right? How Meek controls a little robot body. So that'd have been funny. But we'll talk more about maybe the Grandmaster's role in things later on, if you will. Moving on, Spider-Man No Way Home. In case you did not know, the more fun version is coming on September 2nd with 11 more minutes of footage. This is the first time we've had the confirmation of September 2nd for this movie. This is Sony's doing, not Marvel's. Again, they own the distribution rights. But also tickets are going on sale this Tuesday. So I know someone who messaged me I now have a chance to actually go see Spider-Man in theaters because I missed it the first time. Some people are excited about it.
Yeah, that's actually a good. Good reminder there that I do forget. Even though the movie made a lot of money, there are some people that have not seen it. But to me, obviously, this is just the more money version, not necessarily the more fun version. They're just trying to scrape in a couple more box office dollars. I would expect you see those 11 minutes either on the Blu-ray or
They're not.
Also uploaded to YouTube at some point in time. Eventually, these will be watchable piecemeal. You won't have to see it all at once.
On the 4K and Blu-ray, they did not include any deleted scenes or anything like that.
Well, the subsequent
I know. Well, yeah. There will be another version. But I'm just saying, like that. I think to me, and we talked about this came out. That's kind of a slap in the face for someone who bought the actual movie on physical, because you're like, oh, you expect stuff like that. Even the box says you're going to get this footage. It wasn't anywhere to be found. They cut it after they printed the box art. So, to sell more movie tickets with this. It's interesting. Kind of, Spider-Man No Way Home, starting with that. Thor Love and Thunder. Thor Love and Thunder's total theatrical haul without China and without Russia is more than Thor Ragnarok when they had both of those countries. Which is interesting to me. It may be, the desire more people are trying to go back to movies, and I don't think it's a better movie than Ragnarok, really, right? It's on par with it, I would say, but even without the Hulk, it's very interesting to see those final numbers kind of come together after that. So, Spider-Man No Way Home also made a lot of money without going in China, so good for it. Speaking of Spider-Man, Sony's one of their solid Spider-Man properties, Across the Spider-Verse. A new poster has been revealed for it by one of the producers, Chris Miller, right? Of Phil Lord, Chris Miller fame. This link is just taking me nowhere because it's dying. But have you seen this poster yet, Mike? Have you had a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now. The link works just fine for me. This definitely looks like almost like a handout that you'd see at a convention. So who knows? Maybe we'll see this being handed out at like New York Comic Con or something like that. But a depiction of Miles fighting the 2099 Spider-Man, which is voiced by, remind me again?
Oscar Isaac, Moon Knight himself.
Actor's face. That's right. I was like, I can see his face. What's his name? This almost looks like this is a positive for the movie. This almost looks like a screenshot from the movie, which you're never really entirely sure what's art, what's concept art, and what's like a still. But it looks great.
So the other thing I was gonna kind of take a look at here is he holding something in his hand, or is he using his venom blast, his shock blast? Because he's got like something that kind of like his hands like have something in it, but it also could be the art style.
It's hard to tell if this is just like an action line that just happens to be by his fist. Maybe it's a little more obvious if you have the physical poster and right in front of you, but who knows, maybe there's like some sort of like nano device he has to like stab him with, but I don't think it'll be that antagonistic. I don't imagine Spider-Man 2099 being like the main villain that you need a MacGuffin to stop.
Right, because that's been confirmed to be the Spot, right? The guy with all the black suit with all the spot holes that are like portals. So I don't know what Spider-Man 2099 is doing, but again, this looks pretty cool. I really like I don't know what art style this is, Mike. You might have a better name for it than I do, but like this is very, stylized, hyper stylized, and I love it. It's very kinetic as well. So, you can check that out. It goes to Twitter in our show notes. For that, excited for possibly a trailer sooner than later, right? This is coming out early next year, so knock on wood. Did you ever catch the Man-Thing movie Marvel did with Sci-Fi back in the early 2000s?
I cannot say that I have.
Okay, so the Sci-Fi Network did one Marvel movie in 2005 called Man-Thing. If you're not familiar with Man-Thing, he's very close to Swamp Thing. But he does act in the comic books as one of the nexus points of the Marvel Comics universe. So, we've had a lot of nexus points, right, with Agatha, Wanda, Doctor Strange, all these multiverses. So it's very interesting, in the comic books. He's that, and he's rumored to be in the upcoming Werewolf by Night series as a character. Again, rumors, take it with a grain of salt, however you want. But this movie that you may or may not have seen on Sci-Fi in 2005 is now on Tubi, that free streaming service that we talked about last week, where you can also find Shark Side of the Moon on. So I figured I'd give that a shout because I was like, why is Man-Thing in the news all of a sudden? Apparently, he made his way to Tubi. The director has been reminiscing on how Kevin Feige was like a big proponent of the film. Like, hey, he's giving feedback on the script and kind of helping out as a producer back then, which was which was really cool, right? Like, you can only do so much on I think it was under $5 million to make that movie in 2005. Do you remember the name of the actress who plays Hellcat in Jessica Jones on Netflix?
I can picture.
It's Rachel
I can
something.
Picture her. Yeah.
She's actually in that movie. She plays a different character in that movie, but that was her first foray into the superhero genre back then. So check that out on Tubi or not Tubi. I'm gonna keep making that joke. I gotta stop. Moving on, D23, Mike. Big event coming up. The rest, people are assuming the rest of the MCU phase, multiverse phase saga is going to be announced that week. Casting announcements for Fantastic Four. Rumors are running rampant. Speculation everywhere. But one of the things we don't have to speculate about is Disney and Marvel have announced a games presentation for September 9th, that Friday, at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. And this is very important because, we have a couple big big IP Marvel games on the horizon we know very little about, right? Those specifically being the PlayStation versions of Spider-Man 2 and the upcoming Wolverine game for PlayStation as well.
Man, bless any media outlets out there that cover just video games in general, because the development cycle on these things are like so long that my brain can just not hold on to them. Like, I totally forgot that a Wolverine game was announced. Obviously I know Spider-Man is a game, but it's just so far back in my head because I know these things take forever to come out. So it's always kind of like a nice little surprise for me. Like, there'll be some sort of like video game expo or panel somewhere, and they'll be like, oh, there's finally gameplay footage for this game that was announced like 4 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. No, this is cool. I'll check in again in 2 more years when it's almost done.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man 2 is on the horizon. Wolverine is a little farther out. Those are the same studio. Both, I believe, purchased by Sony recently. It's funny, you mentioned a friend of the show, Brian, who does Comic Yard with me. He recently got a PlayStation 4, and the first 2 games he got were Spider-Man and Miles for his PlayStation 4. So he's been live texting me while he's been playing. And I have to play dumb at some of the points in those storylines because I'm like, oh, I know where this is going. I know what he's about to find out, and I don't want to tell him anything. So it's just fun to listen to him kind of experience the Spider-Man Game of the Year edition, right? Because we played it when it came out. We didn't even get the Game of the Year edition and Miles. So very excited to see Spider-Man 2. Hopefully they have something there for us around the corner. The other games they did confirm, they're going to talk about Disney's Dreamlight Valley, which is like Tom Nook's Animal Crossing, whatever that is for Disney characters. Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is the upcoming turn-based, supernatural Marvel game. And Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, which I've still not beat because this game's just so huge, but it's a really fun game. My guess is maybe more DLC, maybe like some Mandalorian levels or like the Rogue One or Solo movies they didn't put in there. So huge games, big fun. Very excited for some more Marvel IP to kind of get out there in the game world. Lord of the Rings, The Dark Crystal and things, Mike. Not really Dark Crystal. This is I just wanted to rhyme for a second. Lord of the Rings, the series, franchise, rights, everything have now been acquired by a new owner called the Embracer Group. They have acquired Middle-earth Enterprises, which is the company apparently that runs all this stuff. I honestly...
Embracer Group sounds like an evil organization that you would see in a comic book, right?
Yeah, it's very ominous. I didn't think Lord of the Rings was cheap enough to be purchased by somebody I never heard of before. I figured there was a lot of money in the Lord of the Rings stuff, right? And Hobbit stuff. But this company now owns the worldwide rights to motion pictures, video games, board games, merchandising, theme parks, and stage productions relating to the iconic fantasy literary works of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Man, I really wonder what's going on there, because I thought the last that we kind of talked, in general about like Lord of the Rings, being acquired, for production by Amazon, right? I had the opinion in my head that it was kind of a little bit like James Bond in a way, where like the Tolkien estate kind of had final say over exactly what could be done, even though they could sell the rights of it. So like, I'm curious if that's still going on here too, right? I don't really know what's going on here. Is the Embracer Group like owned by the Tolkiens or something like that? I feel like there's something else going on here where it can't be quite as simple as just like these people just outright own Lord of the Rings. They can do whatever they want now.
I believe it is this company, Middle Earth Enterprises, I pull up their wiki just to make sure, owns the worldwide exclusive rights to certain elements of Tolkien's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Certain elements that, to me, that sounds like not outright ownership. So
apparently the Tolkien estate, or I guess Tolkien himself, sold everything, the film, stage, and merchandise rights to United Artists in '68. So he actually was out of it pretty early on, before he passed away. So they've been passing these back and forth.
I would love to see. I mean, we're not huge Lord of the Rings stans, that know every little thing about the universe, but it would be kind of cool to see theme park, right?
Yeah.
It almost seems like that's perfectly pitched for a place like Universal, that's always looking for like a big IP to compete with like Disney at the parks. I mean, it worked well for Harry Potter. I mean, come on, a Lord of the Rings theme park would be like so rad.
Exactly. I mean, when I said that, I'm like, this sounds pretty good. Like a theme park is great. Like, that would be perfect. I know in like New Zealand where they filmed it, they still keep like the Hobbiton stuff, right? And people can go tour that stuff. But like, bring it over here, put one on the East Coast, put one on the West Coast. Let's all go to the, was it the prancing pony, right? In the first one, we can have a drink. Maybe there's some rides where you get chased by ring race, whatever.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, you maybe get some battling stuff. You can stab a couple, orcs or whatever. I don't know, but I was looking into Embracer has come up twice for me this year. The other one, it was they actually bought Square Enix sold a bunch of their assets earlier this year, very cheap, including Crystal Dynamics, which makes the Avengers game, Eidos Montreal, which makes Tomb Raider the game, and some other stuff, because they're talking about Square Enix possibly being purchased by Sony outright. So Embracer now owns like a bunch of different properties, apparently, like quite a bit of studios and stuff like that, including Gearbox, which I believe does Borderlands. So I've never heard of this thing until recently, so it's wild. But one of the concerning aspects of it was someone mentioned very early on, a quote from this article, was other opportunities include exploring additional movies based on iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum, Galadriel, Eowyn, and other characters from the literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien.
So we're trying to X-Men Origins this, huh?
Yeah.
See the origins of Gandalf, Aragorn, all these characters.
Right.
I mean, I'm so glad that I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan, right? Because I feel like this could make people really, really worried.
This is like something where I think, again, Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy and the extended editions are kind of like lightning in a bottle, really, right? Like, they happened, people love them, they're huge, people who are obsessed with them. They're fine to watch by people who aren't even obsessed with, like, medieval fantasy realms things, right? Like, I enjoy watching them. I use one as a demo for my theater room. But, like, I don't want to go down this whole thing of, like, oh, we're going to go tell you the history of Galadriel, or like what happened to Galadriel right after the end of, Return of the King kind of thing. So it's just really weird that they called out specifically additional movies in this whole realm of stuff they're buying, right? Like, I'd be like, oh, we have a Gollum video game coming out. We're going to really, make that a really fun game about, using stealth and having a good time, or we're looking at possibly doing, Lord of the Rings the musical, like the stage production on Broadway, right? But literally just caught the movies, it like made me pause and stop and think, I don't like this now. This sounds very bad for everyone involved along the way, for sure. The other thing is, and again, we are not Lord of the Rings connoisseurs, so this is for anyone who else we might not be. The Rings of Power on Amazon are based on a different book called the what's that called? It's another book that's not Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit that has a different rights rules because it was like an appendix or like the history of Middle Earth.
Silmarillion.
Yeah, the Silmarillion.
I believe is what you're talking about.
Yes. So that is licensed by Amazon currently, and that's where the Rings of Power exists. The same characters can live in both, like Gandalf and like the elves Galadriel and Elrond, but Amazon has the Rings of Power, which is a separate thing. They're not trying to say it's connected. They're also saying it's not connected to the movies, but like they're trying to make it its own thing, right? That's different than Lord of the Rings, like precisely. So they did not get that stuff. They will not own the Amazon rights to that. Along the way, anything else, Mike? You gonna take a trip down to Middle Earth with me when they open that theme park up?
I mean, it just like the video game conversation. If it takes like 5-6 years to make a video game, we're not going to be seeing that theme park for another decade.
The Super Mario Park still works, isn't it? They're still cranking that sucker out. So, all right, moving on. We've talked about this before. The CW was looking to sell itself months ago, right? They're like, we need to find someone to own us. We need a purchaser, whatever. And then Monday, I believe it was last Monday, maybe even Tuesday, the company Nexstar now owns 75% stake in the CW channel. And when I read this, the Nexstar people, I believe they own a lot of cable, or not cable, like over-the-air channels. Like they have a stake in a lot of over-the-air networks you can still find. But these new owners are looking to target an older demographic with the CW, whereas previously the CW had been more of a, teen to early 20s kind of channel.
Well, I mean, what age group still watches, broadcast-based television, right? It's just, we are aging out of it. I always just thought it was crazy, right? That I just, I could get these channels for free through an antenna, but I just could not go onto their, website and watch it, right? The internet has location-based data. They can still feed me the appropriate local television commercials. I just don't want to do it through a television and an antenna. So I'm sure there's some sort of dumb FCC broadcast contract rights out there that I don't comprehend and I don't care about. But basically that just means the younger generation cares less and less about attaching an antenna to anything. And cable channels are probably one of the bigger ways that people approach these broadcast channels. But I don't have any of that. I cut the cord a long, long time ago. So I really only ever engaged with the CW when they were adding things to Netflix after the season finished airing, or they had an app too, which was kind of janky, but sometimes we would use it.
Was that the CW Seed?
Yeah, it was loaded with ads too. So target the people that still visit your channel, and that's going to be an older demographic. I think this just shows you that all of really the creative juices at the CW that was kind of collected to either Warner Brothers or Berlanti, it's probably going to be shifting over to streaming. Yeah. But who knows? We've been talking about streaming and HBO Max here in a little bit, so all of that is in the flux right now.
Yeah, I think the only time I pull out my rabbit ears is Super Bowl time of the year, right? I like watching the commercials live, so I really pull it out. That's the only time of year I think we watch local. I take it back. This year we pull out for the Kentucky Derby because I think there's a streaming something on those, some issue with that. And I didn't want to really pay for live TV for a day, for a couple hours. So, it's very, very, very hard pressed to get me to watch live TV as well. So, Nexstar, they know who's watching, and they're coming for you. You know who you are. The Flash is going for. We talked about 3 options last week, right? Ezra Miller can acknowledge he's got problems, and they work it out, and the movie releases fine. They refilm the ending with someone else, possibly Grant Gustin, after the CW has been sold and the Flash is canceled, or they scrap the film altogether. Well, and I guess events that surprised nobody, right? Ezra Miller has come out to apologize for his actions and says he is seeking help going forward for his behaviors and anything other issues he's having, right, to make himself better. So it sounds like this is he's going to go into some sort of rehab, try to keep a low profile until the Flash movie comes out next year. I've heard
tale as old as time.
Yes, I've heard through the grapevine that The Flash is testing really positive with early audiences. So this is good that they don't have to change anything, and they don't scrap it for insurance purposes, Mike. So
yes, we'll have to see. I feel like this is rehab in a sense of let's rehab his character or their character in the public eye so we can release this movie. But I can't imagine there is a long tail strategy for this actor, right? They got liability written all over them. Let's just get your movie out there, get these box office dollars together, and who knows? Maybe they'll get the exact help they need, and really turn it around. But I wouldn't bet on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could see, knowing that the movie is still far away, he could possibly turn around, or I'm sorry, they could turn around and be just fine. They are a young actor. I don't think they're going to invite him back for Fantastic Beasts, if that ever goes forward. If
there's anything to invite them back to.
Yeah, if there's more Flash in their future, he possibly could be part of that. There's opportunities, but we've time will tell. We still have a little under a year. Relapse can happen for anybody if they're not careful. So keep an eye. Avatar, the movie, not the last Airbender, the one from James Cameron, has been removed from Disney Plus and other streaming options as the theatrical release gets closer. And he was
son of a bitch.
Yep.
I hate this, Chris. Yep. We've been telling our audience for years we are going to do a whole review on the first Avatar because our show did not exist when we all went to theaters to see that blue movie, and we were promising the audience that we were going to revisit that movie, and it was going to be kind of fun for me because I've only seen it once when it was in theaters, which I honestly was like a decade ago, right? So I'm looking to dive back into it, but it sounds like I will have to go through other means rather than the streaming service I already pay for. Mm-hmm. Really annoying.
Well, I think here there's two sides. One, this is again Avatar 1 is being put out as a remastered 4K version, right, or whatever in theaters. So of course, if it's going to theaters, it's not for the second one going to theaters. But I would also be surprised if they pull it from that too. But hopefully, maybe before the new one comes out, they will drop the 4K enhanced edition on Disney Plus before we go see the second one. And that would probably be a better case scenario because I would love to watch a newer than 1080p version of this movie, right? Like, I would really like to see that. So maybe that's what we can hope for.
Who knows? Maybe they're just taking it down so when they add it, they can get that fresh news cycle. Mm-hmm. And there is always a chance that this could just be a long tail contract somewhere, right? Even though Disney did buy Fox, there could be a line item somewhere that said, X number of months before the next Avatar sequel comes out, this goes off of streaming, right? That could be a possibility, and we'll just run past that obviously when Avatar 3 comes out. But either way, luckily I have a very close friend that has an online repository of content. Yeah. So if I need to find it, I don't think I'm going to have a problem finding it.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure that friend already has the original version, but hopefully that 4K version drops pretty soon, or the redone version. I've also heard they're going to be doing a high frame rate version, like a 30 or 60 FPS version of it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch that. That'd be kind of weird.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Mike, in other video game news of franchises you love on your PlayStation, The Last of Us is getting a adaptation on HBO, right? Maybe HBO Max. I don't know if it's HBO proper, just Max. But the first footage from this show was shown this weekend because, of course, there is a Game of Thrones, was it House of the Dragon, I believe it's called, series dropping. So, of course, all eyes are on HBO this weekend. And they decided to put out a big trailer full of other projects that are working on, that are confirmed, coming soon, coming in the future. But of course, they saved the biggest for last. Your first look at The Last of Us, Mike.
Yes, I clicked on the link here in our show notes, and I was like, oh no, Chris accidentally put in the link for a time code for partway through the trailer. Like, no, you did a very nice thing of linking exactly to this part of the sizzle reel where The Last of Us is, which means, unfortunately, we only get about 20 seconds, but it looks cool. It looks great. It's coming out soon. It looks just like the video game. They're really nailing the aesthetic that they've built from the game, but like it's almost like they are in a great position where the game was built so well to like mimic real life in a way if this scenario was to ever transpire. So Last of Us looks great. But no, you bring up a good point where all eyes were on HBO last night. I saw a video on Twitter where somebody was walking through New York, and they took a video of the outside of this apartment building where at least 6 of the units were all synced up watching House of the Dragon. So they either must have all hit play at the same time on their streaming device, or they still have like terrestrial, in a sense, HBO where it just airs at a certain time. But it was just like, oh yeah, that's right. People loved Game of Thrones, and they're still going to come back when they make a sequel, even though we still have a bitter taste left in our mouth.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm indifferent to Game of Thrones. I never got hooked on it. I missed like half of the middle of the season or the whole show. So for me, I don't have that draw. But like watching this Last of Us, what I really want to see, Mike, are the clickers, right? I really want to see their the enemies in this. So I'm sad they didn't show that. However, I mean, like you mentioned, I've seen clips from the game. I know the color palette of the game, and this color palette matches up pretty good. With again, our Mandalorian Pedro Pascal himself, and I forget the actress's name, but she was also in Game of Thrones as the lady of the one house. So really cool. Check that out. Again, I linked right to the time code in the show notes, so you don't have to. You can watch the whole trailer if you want, but we know what you want to see in there. Speaking of HBO Max, things that have been leaving bad taste in our mouth this week, Mike. I'm just gonna jump into this. First and foremost, HBO Max has removed 36 shows and movies, a mixture of both, from their platform, and that includes HBO Max originals, which when you say that sounds shocking. Things that you might, I know a lot of these series and movies I didn't know, but the ones I did know, Sesame Street, the longest running public TV show ever. A lot of the episodes pre-season, I believe 32, like I think 200 episodes just gone off the service. Infinity Train, Mike, I know you're a big fan of that show. And Aquaman, King of Atlantis, a DC property in and of itself. That's not even that old. I believe it's still kind of new. Was just wiped clean, wiped from the face of streaming this week in the blink of an eye.
It's crazy. It just vanishes, and luckily I found a lot of like sane voices out there on Twitter that seem to have like legal backgrounds in the entertainment industry. Like we always say, we would love to have a Patreon just so we could hire an entertainment lawyer for this show, right? But apparently when you buy, or merge with another organization, it's almost kind of like resetting the clock for acquisitions of these materials, and you can remove these things and still gain the tax incentive, right? Because like we just saw with Batgirl getting canceled, they can do that because that's kind of happening within this calendar year. It's still new, it's fresh, hasn't come out yet, right? So it's like, how do you declare a tax write-off for something that's been out for years? Well, that's what happens when two giant companies merge. They can start, shedding their inventory, right, to save on taxes, which is just crazy that crazy that like a little cartoon, like Infinity Train that really captured the hearts of a lot of people can just vanish and disappear, right? Just because they're trying to fix a balance sheet. Like it's gone. Like, and as far as I've heard, it's permanent. It's not like they can wait until the next tax year and bring it back. It's gone forever. They don't own it anymore.
There is a secondary argument to this, or reasoning, and we'll get to that here in a minute, Mike. But I would say, you mentioned all of it going away. Not not just Infinity Train, but other shows, their YouTube channels, their soundtracks on Spotify, their DVD copies on like Amazon and other things, wiped completely clean. Every bit of this gone. And those I don't believe are tax writers, but those will tie into the reason I've been seeing the most out of this is finances. Like you talked about, right? They're saving money. Residuals are paid to cast, crew, writers, and other people involved every time something is streamed, sold, or I guess accessed by an outside source, right? So every time you watch something or buy a DVD, they have to pay certain people part of this, right? It's not just all the money goes back to Warner Brothers and they pocket it and nobody else gets anything. All the actors and writers and people, producers get this little bits of money off of it. You've seen all those old shows where they're like, oh, you get little checks for like pennies in the mail, right? But you get hundreds of them over time if you're getting residuals. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the stuff because of they own it on HBO Max, they can actually terminate that immediately rather than finish out a contracted agreement with someone they're licensing that from. If they're borrowing it, they can't do that. But if they own it, they can cut it immediately and start quote unquote saving money right out the gate. I was like, oh, it's just HBO Max, it's great. That sucks. But that's the where the reach stops. But I cannot believe all the stuff YouTube, trailers and places to listen to songs or music, Spotify links, DVD sales just gone, like in the blink of an eye. Like only resellers now have them, right? Like scalpers, if you will, or people who are selling their own personal collection. So that is just, my mind's blown here. And the other thing here is like all the targeted titles seem to be either kid related, right? Because of all the animation and the Sesame Street, or reality programming HBO Max had. And I have a little bit of insight onto the reality programming one, if you would like that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, David Zaslav, who came from Discovery, does not believe in, doing any more scripted content, and he thinks all of the reality programming from Discovery will supplement anything on HBO. So I was talking with a friend of the show, Patrick, who actually, he literally sent me that video of the houses in New York, like earlier today on TikTok. Mm-hmm. But we pulled up the quote here where we were talking about it here. But like, he says, and I'm going to quote, scripted has had its moment. This is our time. So he is literally going against all of the scripted content they've ever made on HBO Max. Like he hates it. He doesn't want to do it anymore. But then we were discussing how HBO literally is grew its whole culture on scripted content on there, right? Like literally, the last bullet point was a trailer showing all the scripted content HBO provides, and they're pushing it this weekend. So
yeah, it's crazy just to kind of see. It feels like we're really leaving this era of streaming services that have just felt like, startup companies out of Silicon Valley, right? Netflix was just running off of investor money for years and years and years. And then when you have these older media companies that need to make their own streaming services, they can't act quite like a quirky little company out of San Francisco that has billions of dollars of investors in it. You got to start making these hard cuts, and like Netflix is even starting to pivot to that as well. And it almost seems like the strategy now is not necessarily to have like a big robust catalog where you can put like a big number in front of people's faces, like on your marketing graphics of like, oh, we have like 10,000, 20,000 titles. It seems the game here is just to make 12 really good things a year, right? Mm-hmm. If you can just make 12 things to make people subscribe every single month, like why would you go out of your way to make a large, robust catalog when you're just trying to capture, 15, bucks a month? So unfortunately, it feels like that's where it's going, which means, this whole idea of like competition between these streaming services is now moving from quantity to let's just get the bucks. Well, I don't know. It seems a little dystopian, unfortunately.
So what I had also looking into this because it was going down a rabbit hole is that a lot of the reason Netflix is failing is because it has too much content, right? And they don't know how to display all that content, right? They try to do top 10s and recommend it, but like you kind of get in the same cycle, the same loop over and over again. So having too much content has been paralyzing people from actually utilizing some of these streaming services. And to the effect, Disney has actually done the opposite, and that's why they've not merged Hulu, ESPN, and Disney Plus yet into one platform, because they see, again, 3 services equals 3 times the amount of money, right, if you're paying. But also, the smaller chunks allow people to be able to utilize them more and will bounce between those apps more frequently if they know what's there and how to present it, if you will. So I feel, I HBO culling all this stuff, literally, again, they own it. It's stupid. I don't like reality television. I even joke, like, I wonder how many Discovery subscriptions are actually doctors' offices and dentists' rooms, right? Like, rather than actual end users at the end of the day. I will tell you the only unscripted content I would watch is probably like a game show network, which is, something I can put on the background. But I'm not here to watch your HGTVs. I'm not here to watch. I don't even know what else is unscripted. I'm starting to Food Network maybe.
The only thing that we can hope, right, is CEOs are always replaceable. If they don't see their stock price turn in the right direction, they get canned and they get replaced. So we just have to hope that there's enough competition out there in the landscape to push for captivated content. And maybe this is where Zaslav, is that his name?
Zaslav, yeah.
Zaslav, maybe he gets an education here this week with the new Game of Thrones spinoff, coming out, right? Of like, oh crap, this is what analytics looks like for a show, and you can't sell merch, for a reality show. Like you can sell like a couple like T-shirts to some
you can't
like some house spouses, right?
I think you can't tap into a zeitgeist with reality programming, right? Like it's all the same format, it's all cut the same. I went to school to learn how to make movies and TVs, and you can see the patterns and everything, right? Like I always know where this is going. Like they cut on the drama and things are very predictable. We were on Amazon for a while watching Hell's Kitchen. I'm like, I know exactly how every one of these is going to go, like every time. So it's just really, what he has said is an affront to people who like HBO, and that HBO, has become, will or hopefully does not become something of the Discovery Network, if you will. I would love to them, even though I'm not watching House of the Dragon. There are other things on HBO I would like to watch. A 5th and final season of Westworld would be fantastic for me. I'm glad that Our Flag Means Death, is getting another season, thankfully. So there's good stuff on here that needs to continue to happen. That isn't reality based. They also laid off a bunch of people at HBO Max, but it was really the reality programming staff, which I actually didn't know HBO Max had its own reality programming, so that's on me, but I'm not the audience for that. I will say the last thing I want to say is, they are really, I don't know if they're trying to sweeten the pot because of everything going on or what, but they literally are doing a new pricing right now, promotion for this through the end of October. So if you join HBO Max for a year, it's $105 for a year of ad-free. Normally it's $150. Or if you go for the HBO Max ad-supported, it's $70 for the year compared to $100. Now, I get mine through my phone plan, so hopefully that doesn't go away, because I don't know I would ever support a scriptless HBO Max offering.
Yeah, well, I looked into it to see, if an existing account could do this, and it wouldn't let me do it.
Really?
I actually
Okay.
tried, I think it's supposed to be for new or returning accounts.
Oh, returning.
And I think that's kind of how I think that's how the language is written down there. So, but it's not hard to make a new email address, right?
Right.
You can always create a new account if you foresee 12 months of HBO Max in your future.
Right. Exactly. I'm happy mine is paid for, but I'm not thrilled this week. Like, if I was ever to like out of I guess I don't know, like just how I felt, I would probably cancel HBO Max if it was not included with my actual phone plan. So it kind of sucks. So yeah. Anyway, let's wrap this episode up by talking about She-Hulk, which is fresh for you and about a week old for me at this point. So we are coming at this different. So She-Hulk debuted on Disney Plus this Thursday and will be on Thursdays for the next 8 weeks. 9 episodes for this, a half-hour comedy show, and I think that stays true by watching this episode, Mike. This is probably, I mean, for the first episode of a Disney Plus, you would say this is probably like the most memeable episode based on the internet this week, for sure.
Yeah, and some memes that I definitely could not avoid, unfortunately, until I got a chance to watch it today. I was like, there's something in here about Steve Rogers. I keep seeing this dude's name pop up next to She-Hulk for like the whole weekend, so I finally got to figure out what that was today.
Yeah. So, so we're going to talk about the first episode. If you've not seen it, you can go watch it. Literally, it's like 25 to 30 minutes without credits, right? So, I mean, it's a breeze of an episode. Mike, what do you think about it?
I think the second half of the episode definitely redeems the first half. There's a lot of very convenient, contrived plot at the beginning that sets up kind of how we're talking about spoilers. The fact that that she has to get her arm cut on the way out of the car, right? And then she has to go pull Bruce out of the car as well. And he also has to get cut. And then it has to bleed directly on top of her open cut, which is in a very specific location for the blood transfusion to happen. I was just like, you really couldn't think of a more elegant way to do this. Like, it seemed very, very ham-fisted and really inefficient. Like, there's so many other ways you could have got her like a little bit of Bruce blood in her, and that I think could have been more interesting as well, right? This almost just seemed like more of an accident, just happen chance, it was like fate, if you will, right? I think it almost would have been more interesting if she was on like the verge of death or something, and she had to make the choice of, well, do I die or do I take this blood and become a Hulk or something? Or maybe, she was about to lose it and Bruce makes the decision for her, and you have that conflict in between the two of them reinforced. But no, they just happened to swap some blood in an accident. But I just tried my best to look past it, and then once we got into the second half of the episode where she was learning to be the Hulk, and they have that fun banter back and forth, that's where I found a lot of the fun and a lot of the hope and optimism for the show going forward.
I would say if you're focusing on how she gets her powers, I think that's the wrong part of the thing to focus on. Like, she could have started the episode, the whole thing as a She-Hulk, but I do enjoy it is a nod. Everything in this is a nod and a wink at the camera, right? Like, everything is like, hey, look, we know this is goofy, we know this is silly, but we're having fun doing it. And one of the things I was worried about, not for personal, but like, you have a Hulk and a She-Hulk for most of this episode, right? Like, they're not, like, you get a little bit of human Bruce Banner, and Tatiana Maslany, she goes back and forth between Jennifer Walters and her She-Hulk alter ego. So I was worried, like, how's this gonna look? But I can feel confident that they put their money into this, making them both look good and believable for this, right? For most of this episode, I think it was really fun to like you said, once they got into it with most of it, literally most of the show, 90% or more is what Bruce and Jennifer, like, talking back and forth. Like, Bruce, like, here's the book on how I became the Hulk, and she's like, I don't need it. Kind of like, yes, you have to deal with your other ego the whole time. So I thought that was interesting to find Bruce's, I guess, quote unquote happy place, right? Like, really his little tiki bar. He had his moments with Tony Stark there. Their initials were etched in the counter, kind of thing. Did you see the Ultron mask in his living room when she came in?
Was that an Ultron mask or was that like an old Iron Man?
That's
what I thought it was.
That's the first Ultron. Whenever he takes over the Iron Legion body and they fight him in the Avengers Tower, that's the mask from that. So I thought that was a really cool callback because technically Bruce, created was the other half of creation of Ultron. I really like the ladies who picked her up at the bar. And they were all like, "We're gonna help you get back." Like, honey, who did this? We're gonna put makeup on you, and they like dolled her up real fast in the bar on the way out. I think this is a pretty good show. I think they lean into the comedy. They hit with the jokes. It was just a good time, and it looked good while doing it. I was very concerned about. But I also read yesterday, or maybe today, that this was actually supposed to be like the 7th or 8th episode originally when they were writing it. Like they weren't going to reveal how she got her powers until later. So it was interesting to kind of look back on it with that mindset a little bit. Like, oh, this could have been much later down the road.
Well, I mean, this was definitely a better route to go because if they're going to wait to reveal how she got her powers, it would need to be a little bit more interesting, like I said before, of like just a happy, inconvenient accident.
I think there is the Sakaran ship that's there that Bruce is like, I don't know why it's here. I need to look in it. I think this has a plot point down this season.
Oh, and for sure. He basically looks at the camera and says, "Guess what, everybody? I'm gonna look up it. I'm gonna look in on this. And you'll see more of me later on this ship."
My guess is you're gonna get to that reveal and then find out that ship caused the accident down the road. Like I think that might have been how it might have been written. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. How Bruce is in here. It was very fun. I like her talking to the camera more than I thought I would. I think the nod and the wink at the camera with the literal stuff is very fun. Hopefully we get some reasoning for that. If not, I won't be upset. But she was doing that before Deadpool did it in her books because she knew it was kind of goofy. So it's fun to see that carry through. Overall, I mean, it's a short episode, right? You really get to see her just kind of learn how to control her power. There's a very empowering speech where she talks about how women have to control their anger more frequently than men, so that's why she can do it better than men. And I thought that was a very good speech to have in this, about again empowering women, things they have to deal with on a regular basis, which they even showed early on when the men were harassing her at the bar outside. So I thought it was good. My wife really liked that part as well. I think she was really digging the for lack of a better term, girl power, I guess, of this episode as well. So unless you got something else to say, we can talk about the post-credit scene, right? I mean, it's one of the three moments where they cut off the F word in the MCU at this point. So
yes, Captain America F's really funny, great stuff. If they're gonna lean into more humor like that, I'm definitely for it because even though the MCU will go ultra violent at some point in time, and show blood and faces getting beat up. Not a lot of swear words. I mean, literally, Captain America will tell language.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get a little bit of that. That's what happens, Steve, when you're not around anymore. You're an old man. You can't wag your finger at anybody.
That's
anymore.
right. He's telling people to get off his lawn.
Or is it? Or he's not. Like he's technically not even there anymore, right? He went.
No.
Like, where is old Steve? Where is current old Steve that we saw at the end of Endgame?
He is in this timeline somewhere. They have
He's
told us
wandering around.
Well, supposedly he died in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? That's why they started the whole show about him being dead, right? Or later. That's how Sam gets the shield, kind of thing. But we don't know if he's really dead. I could totally see them like, now we're hiding the real Steve. We're not telling everyone Steve Rogers went back in time and stayed here forever, kind of thing. We don't know where he is.
Out there feeding the ducks, going in the libraries and making sure people aren't looking at pornography.
Yeah.
Just really doing street level hero work.
He's asking his grandkids, how do I order something on Amazon? He just wants to know. He's got to get something on Amazon.
Yeah, but She-Hulk, give it a solid B, hoping that it turns around and improves, but obviously I'm very cautious. I haven't been super warm on a lot of the Disney Plus shows so far, but as we've said in the past couple episodes, this is the last in that first kind of bulk order of Disney Plus Marvel shows. I don't know if this one necessarily had the longest tail of development because they've shifted a lot of release dates of stuff around. So we don't know if this was really the last one to get kicked off, but this is the last from that group.
Well, I would say it probably has the most time in CG post-production work than any of the other ones. So it could have been filmed with those, and it's just on the tail end because of that effect, right? Like it's like we have we have to make someone green the whole episode.
Yeah, and I thought the visuals looked fine.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't exactly stellar. My jaw wasn't dropping, but, you know, seeing two kind of CG characters on screen sharing time, it didn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
So I would say they have elevated themselves past the drama of that first trailer that came out.
And I would honestly say, you know, it was comforting to have Mark Ruffalo there for a lot of this, right? Like an old, like a classic Avenger. And I know we had Hawkeye. That's different, but like Bruce Banner is like he's in here and his, you know, Mark Ruffalo's doing his voice. He's doing everything that we've known him to be for, you know, through all the Avengers movies. I think that was a very comforting kind of addition to this first episode to ease us into it. Even I would say. So we'll see. I don't expect him to be in a lot more, but you know, we do know Abomination is on the horizon, right? Emil Blonsky, so and Wong from the trailer, right? When are we going to get Wong? So cross our fingers for a lot more cameos as we do go through these every Thursday. So, all right, well, that's it for this week, Mike. Let's wrap this episode up. If people want to know what you're doing, what you're up to, where can they find you at?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my webcomics at pickledcomic.com. Chris, people want to catch up with you. Where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, or Instagram, Valdan87. People know about the show, where they can learn more, get everything else, where can they do all that fun stuff.
Obviously, go visit our headquarters, which is superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host our show and to get our awesome show notes. So if you want to see that Last of Us footage or that concept art from Thor Love and Thunder or even that Pre-viz from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, we got that all in our show notes. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to find podcasts. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Please reach out. What are you watching right now? What are you upset that got cut from HBO Max? Are you canceling your subscription? Let us know. Keep us in the know. If you want to be a super fan, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy. We'll be here every week, folks.
That's right, and we will see you this week probably on our regularly scheduled program.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.